Welcome, Justin Macmullan, Advocacy Director of Consumers International. I have the first question. The main task of Consumers International is to ensure the safety of the consumers worldwide. How exactly is your organization doing this, and what makes it different from other consumer rights initiatives?
We're basically the international membership organisation for consumer groups around the world. So we've got about 200 consumer organisation members in about 100 countries. Our task really is to be an independent voice for consumers on the international stage. So traditionally we focus very much on international organisations and international processes like the G20, the United Nations. We still do that, but increasingly we're also engaging with marketplace players, so companies, because we found that the international institutions, they can develop great principles, guidelines, but it does take time, and of course those principles then need to be implemented to actually make an impact for consumers. So we will continue to do that work, but alongside it, we also want to work with companies to actually deliver changes for consumers in the marketplace now. And we've recently done that with Vodafone, and it was one way of influencing the market, and Vodafone are putting changes and new practices into place which will actually benefit consumers in the marketplace today.
What new challenges do occur in the age of digitization and artificial intelligence in the aim of protecting the consumers' rights?
There are huge benefits from new technology. So talking about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, consumers really do benefit from it, and consumers like the benefits that they get from it. But alongside that, there is a trust issue. So some of the issues around tracking, around the use of data, about simple transparency. Do they know how AI is being used? Do they know how IoT is being used and how it's influencing their lives? So we want to preserve those benefits, but also work with governments and companies to try and improve some of those other issues, those underlying issues that consumers are concerned about. So working to develop good data protection practices, greater transparency, even some of the simple things around ensuring if a consumer wants to complain, it's very clear where they can complain to, that their complaint is dealt with quickly, issues like that.
Very interesting. You kind of touched base on that, but the Tech Divide study revealed that the majority of Europeans don't trust in their governments to actually manage digitization, the opportunities as well as the challenges. Do you have an explanation for this lack of trust? I mean, you kind of touched that topic, but maybe you can go further.
I think there are a couple of things. The pace of change with digital technology is huge. We've heard a consumer in a focus group describe it like being on a roller coaster. It's kind of exciting, but it's also a little bit unnerving, a little bit unsettling. And this pace of change does make people feel a little bit unsettled. And of course, you want to make sure that there is someone out there that's looking out for you, that's ensuring things are safe, that's ensuring you're informed about what's happening. And I think consumers don't feel that with digital technology. Also, with very immediate things such as some of the data breaches that they've seen in the news or maybe been affected by the Cambridge Analytica story, that was an awareness-raising moment for a lot of people. Even some of the things around, for instance, digital companies and taxation, people just felt these companies are maybe above the law, they're not abiding by the same rules. So I suppose all these things feed into that sense that maybe governments aren't on top of it. But the fact that people felt this is also to some extent a comment on companies as well. So there's a responsibility on companies to take these issues seriously and listen to what consumers need, and of course for governments too as well.
Very interesting. How can we ensure that policy making and public administration in general keep pace with technological developments while meeting the expectations of citizens?
There are new ways of developing regulation that try to maintain space for innovation and disruption which can be beneficial to consumers, but do it in a safe space. So the idea is called having a sandpit or a sandbox, and it's basically creating a safe area in which companies can experiment a little bit with new technologies, but do it in a way that they're in constant dialogue with the regulator. They're given a bit more freedom from regulation, but the regulator is in touch with them, knows what's happening, and can ensure that there are no negative impacts for consumers. So there are new ways of developing regulation so that you get the benefits, but also you don't undermine consumers' rights as well.
You already talked about this a little bit. The Consumers International is in a cooperation with Vodafone regarding IoT Trust by Design. What is the cooperation about, and why did you partner with Vodafone in the first place?
Internet of Things is one of the most pressing new emerging technologies for consumers. It's sort of crept into our lives with smart TVs and fitness trackers and all sorts of other products. And consumers do enjoy the technology, they get a lot out of it. But there are concerns around some aspects of it. So, for instance, around the security, the data protection, questions around ownership, because so many different companies could be involved, from the manufacturer to the carrier to the app sits on the phone, so who's responsible for different elements. So we worked with Vodafone to come up with a set of principles, guidelines and checklists that manufacturers can use to ensure that consumer trust is built in from the very beginning, so from the design stage. So when they're developing a consumer Internet of Things product, they think about issues like privacy, security, complaints handling, is it accessible to vulnerable consumers? And the great thing about the project with Vodafone is that it's a very practical guide. So a small developer could pick it up and use it. It's checklists, it's very accessible stuff. So we really hope that it will be used certainly by Vodafone, but much wider as well.
Hopefully, yes. Last but not least, what is your greatest wish for the future of Europe?
For the future of Europe? I think it's getting that combination whereby consumers can really benefit from all the things that new technology can bring, and there are so many of them. But we maintain consumer trust in that journey so that consumers can enjoy all these benefits without having to worry about what's happening to their data, about what happens if something goes wrong.
All right. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.